Welcome back to Bring It Home, the show about American reindustrialization, the manufacturing renaissance, onshoring, and bringing industry back to the United States. I'm your host, JP Hampstead. Today, we have a great show lined up for you. We're talking to Zane Hengsperger, a young Twitter personality, a guy who got out of the tech world, ended up buying a small steel manufacturer. He's got a lot of thoughts about how to modernize some very old school, heavy industrial manufacturing in his home region of Windsor, Ontario, Detroit, Michigan. So great interview, all about his story and how he uh, came back to manufacturing, really. But first, we've got a few headlines I want to cover. Some big ones, actually. On Tuesday, July 15th, the interim CEO of Westinghouse, Dan Sumner, at an AI conference told President Trump that Westinghouse plans to build 10 large nuclear reactors in the United States, with construction to begin by 2030, in accordance with some of the executive orders that President Trump had signed a few months prior. This is great news. Sumner said that these reactors would create about $75 billion worth of economic value across the country. And he was specifically talking about these large AP1000 pressurized water reactors. They're capable of generating a gigawatt of energy, which is enough to power more than 750,000 homes apiece. Westinghouse touts these as the most advanced commercially available nuclear reactors on the market. China currently has 4 of them in operation and another 12 under construction. The U.S., in comparison, only has 2 up and running right now. So, starting construction on a whole nother fleet of them in just a few short years is really great news, just for the modernization of America's electrical grid and our ability to continue to power reindustrialization. There's an interesting item in Bloomberg as well that I wanted to talk about, because it has something to do with the conversation I had with Charles Yang. Um, the headline was, the US has more copper than China, but no way to refine all of it. And it's a really interesting profile of the Freeport smelter in Miami, Arizona, one of the few copper smelting facilities left in the United States. As a lot of that refining and melting and that sort of uh, part of the copper chain has moved to China. The facility has kind of remained afloat, even though its costs are about 3 times higher than Freeport's operations outside of the U.S. It processes ore from nearby Freeport mines. It produces sulfuric acid as well. And the article was interesting because it really highlights um, how China has been able to sort of control the copper market by heavily subsidizing the smelting and refining operations, so that smelting and refining in other countries, in Western countries like the United States, becomes uneconomical. And then basically that allows China to control like the bottleneck for copper entering the global market. If they're able to subsidize smelting and do it for cheaper than other places, the smelting facilities elsewhere end up shutting down. The capacity migrates to China, and now all of a sudden they have the ability to dictate, how much refined copper enters commodities markets globally each year. And so then that plays havoc with mines in the U.S. And there's a whole sort of complex and sort of cascade of effects on U.S. like mining and minerals, because of the way that refining capacity has been concentrated in China. And in my conversation with Charles Yang, an episode or 2 ago, he's done a lot of work on sort of strategic financing for the metal supply chain and minerals in the United States, ways of sort of locking in domestic demand, and ways that the U.S. government can not directly sort of grant money or shovel money into these projects through grants or things like that, but able to sort of create these interesting financial instruments that can help miners and smelters and refiners sort of deal with like the fluctuating copper prices if China decides to flood the market again in order to keep things from being built in the U.S. So definitely check out that episode. It's been a problem that's like decades in the making, and um, as Bloomberg noted in the article, the demand for copper smelting in the U.S. is spiking, but the capacity isn't there. And the conversation with Charles Yang sort of explains why the capacity isn't there and what we can do about it. The last headline, kind of a minor investment announcement: Rolls-Royce increases U.S. manufacturing. It's investing $75 million in its Aiken, South Carolina facility. It's making the Series 4000 diesel engines. These are high-speed engines used in a kind of a variety of applications, including like power and oil and gas and things like that. This particular investment is supposed to create 60 new jobs at its pre-existing facility, bringing the total for that place to about 434 jobs. It follows on a smaller investment that was made, I think, at a Minnesota facility, and Rolls-Royce in the announcement just highlighted the sort of increasing urgency of these sorts of products to kind of bolster the electrical grid and meet kind of fluctuating and ever increasing power demands, especially caused by AI. So those are the headlines for the show today. Really excited to talk to Zane, and so we'll go ahead and go to that interview.
Welcome back to the Scenic City, everybody. It's time for the Future of Freight Festival 2025 edition. And this year, we've got some surprises up our sleeve. You're going to join us in Chattanooga at the end of October. We're still going to have everything you love about F3, the speakers, the fun, the incredible atmosphere. But this year, we're dropping you in the heart of Chattanooga. We're taking you to the historic Chattanooga Choo Choo. We're going to have our live music at the Signal this year once again. We're going to give you the experience that you can only get from a FreightWaves event. Go to live.freightwaves.com, get your tickets. We'll see you in October. You don't want to miss it.
All right, and now I'm here with our guest, Zane Hengsperger from Delta 70, a steel rack manufacturing company, Twitter personality, former ad man. Zane, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. I'm stoked to be here and excited to chat.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming. I want to talk, you've had a series of roles in your career, different industries that you've been a part of, but I want for a second to talk about your origins in Windsor, Ontario. It's it's right across the border from Detroit, which is probably one of the most dynamic industrialization and deindustrialization stories of the 20th century. And I just kind of want to hear about what it was like growing up in Windsor and how that informs your perspective on industrial companies today.
For sure. So Windsor's kind of like a sleeper manufacturing town. Like I didn't appreciate it growing up, but like everyone's parents worked in manufacturing, and that was just kind of like second nature to us. So like growing up, my dad, moved to Windsor to get into manufacturing. He went to Waterloo for engineering, moved down here to a machine shop, ended up spinning up his own. Everyone's parents worked at Chrysler on the line, or maybe they had their own shop, or you always knew someone in manufacturing. So yeah, I really grew up around it. Windsor's a town that like I think its origins kind of started from like really like Detroit being the powerhouse. So like this city next door could like kind of be like the parts city that could like help supply the whole like automotive industry in Detroit. So like it still is that. There's not much aerospace. There's not much defense. It's all auto. When cars aren't selling, people are hurting. It's sometimes sad, but when things are doing well, people are doing well. So everyone's always paying attention. Seeing what cars are on the road, that kind of thing. I got lucky enough to grow up in a machine shop. My first job was on the factory floor, scrubbing the floor. I think my dad convinced me that it'd be fun driving the
like literally on the factory floor.
Yeah, I know. It was like I think I was 14, so like he was like, "Oh, this thing would be so fun to drive." I think it's his way of like teaching me hard work, whatever. Actually, like I have a great relationship with my dad, so I thank him for that. and yeah, I don't know how far you want me to go into this, but like that's kind of like my theory on like Windsor and how I kind of got into like a first taste of it.
And then you went to the technology industry, and kind of want to hear a little bit about what you picked up from the startups you worked for, and maybe, what part of that mentality you're bringing to Delta 70.
Yeah, so I ended up going to the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, which was a great experience. I picked up an internship at a company called TeamPay, which was like a fintech startup, and like kind of just learned about like sales and marketing and product a bit. After that, kind of like the whole Mark Andreessen software is eating the world thing. Like oh, I don't really care about manufacturing. In fact, I don't know if I like scrubbing the floor or working the lathe. In hindsight, horrible take on my part. But ended up going to Uber post college, working in the Toronto office. Left after 3 months, start my own company. That was like a fun experience. We had like a couple more than a handful of customers, and then um, at the same time, some folks I used to work with or be around wanted to acquire a machine shop. And I was like, oh, this is like maybe interesting. They asked me if I wanted to help out someone who's like young to be on the ground. I was like, I'll at least go check it out. So I ended up doing that. And at the same time, like I just got onto Twitter, which is like I didn't think manufacturing would be. I got on Twitter to like connect with like advertising people. Um, Ended up stepping on the factory floor, thought it was like awesome. Reindustrialize was happening at the same time, and then I read a really good article which I recommend everyone to read. It's by Contrary Research. It's about Hadrian, and the first part of that, I mean, the whole article is great, but like they just dive into the machine shop problem, the replacement problem,
This
the
is
threat
Chris
of like,
Powers' company.
pardon me.
This is Chris Powers' company.
Yeah, exactly. Just that whole problem, like what he's solving. So it was like the perfect storm.
That's awesome. When were you at U of M? I was there from 2010 to
Oh,
2017
you went to U of M?
in grad school. Yeah.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, I was there 2019 to 22. So I actually was a transfer student.
Oh,
I
nice. So
went
you
to
were there right
school in
after me.
Canada for a year. Pardon me?
You were there right after me.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Nice. Ann Arbor's a great town to be both an undergraduate and a graduate student in.
Yeah, I still got some buddies there that are like grad students. I think they still love it. So, and I mean, always have a special place in my heart. I try to go there. I'm like an hour away, so I go there as much as I can.
So you and some friends decided to buy a machine shop. What were your like sort of the criteria for your acquisition targets here? Like,
Yeah, it's weird because like I didn't know if I'd call them friends, more like colleagues. I mean, I consider them my friends, but like not guys I hang out with. They're all much older than me. But basically, we we took like a weird approach to it, where like we weren't like, hey, let's go buy a machine shop. It was like, hey, there's these opportunities out there that like kind of approached us, and like we were like sought after them. So like we kind of learned over time like what we liked and what we didn't like. Never did I thought would be in like fabrication. So that there's not like a single CNC where I work now. Whereas like before we're targeting like CNC injection molding just because like that's what our entire background was. What we realized is that there's like a pretty decent market in fabrication. It was like this company that came to us was kind of like almost too good to pass on. Seemed like a good challenge to learn. And what I
so
really, what I,
just
yeah, go ahead.
pause for a second. Fabrication meaning like the sort of like melting and bending and cutting of
Yeah,
metal versus just like drilling and
yeah, I see fabrication as like taking like steel products and like making parts without milling, I guess, too much. I guess you can CNC in fabrication, but I see it more as like welding, bending, cutting.
got it.
Um,
Okay, go ahead.
yeah, I don't even know. I don't even have a really good definition there. But, anyways, to scale a CNC machine or a CNC company or an injection molding company, which we're familiar with, you need to spend a few $1,000,000. But like with this specific company, this isn't true for every fabrication or welder. But like if we wanted to scale another, I don't know, like double our capacity, it's actually like you hire a few more welders. Like it's very welding focused, a bit of brake pressing, a bit of saw cutting, but it's mainly welding. So it seemed like a really interesting take, and like just it was something that was almost too good to pass up on.
So it seems like something almost too good to pass up on. And what has surprised you about the business, or what have you learned since becoming the general manager?
It's a really good question. I think I learned that a lot more things will go wrong than you think. like your forklifts will break. Like I think, and people were telling me this, like, why the heck are you buying an old company? Like everything's going to break. And I was like, no, it's not. Like if it's working for this guy and the financial statement looks like this, like we're going to do that. And that's just not always true. Like things will break, things will go wrong. So my biggest takeaway if I were to do this again would be probably do the same thing, but just a bit more due diligence. Probably change up the terms a bit more. So that's been the biggest learning, but also just like being on the floor, seeing every single part. Like um, the biggest thing I've improved is like quality, like my attention to quality, like how much an important part matters at the end of the day. Like I thought the part would matter, but it actually ends up being paint and stenciling, which is like 2% of your cogs and like 2% of your time. It's just like, what does the customer care about? So like I don't know, I have a lot more to learn. I'm like really excited every day. I've been in it for like 4 months, but those are like two main things that like stand out to me initially.
That's awesome. And you've said that you want to like bring advanced technology to this operation. Do you have an idea of like how you might do that? Are you talking like robotics, software? Where how does technology help you scale Delta 70 and get sort of operating leverage on the company that didn't exist there before?
So the company I used to be a part of, like I'll steal their idea. What they did to create a lot of value was vertical software. So rather than like buying off the shelf solutions, which they tried first, they thought we're just gonna like custom build this in house. It's like an asset, something we can own, in house developers. So that was interesting because like not to sidetrack too much, but even when I was looking at like we were looking at like companies to buy, I was like, oh, these are all so different. Like, how can you kind of just like slap something on this and make it work? Um, so when I think about it vertically, which means if people don't know what that means, it means like building it in house internally, um, hiring software engineers and building stuff. What that looks like, I don't know where to start. Like I have a ton of ideas here. Like I think there's a really interesting use case for purchasing. Like who should we purchase from like every single time for what specific part? If you have 200 different parts we buy a year, and on top of that, those are like 200 different lengths. It's like, oh, that's a lot of different parts. Like who are we getting the best price from? I know a lot of people grade their suppliers, but I would actually like I think there's a better use case for like AI or some sort of algorithm that ranks them a little better than that. I think there's a really good use case for like quality management. So like we can send to our customer like, hey, this is your quality report. Like this, it's checked, an operator signed off on it. Every single one. You can see every signature, see every picture if you want to do that. Sometimes that's harder. So that, I don't know. I think about it in like every single silo of the business. I could bore you all day with like, okay, now
No,
next we're gonna go to like how efficient the brake press runs and like how efficient this line runs and all that kind of stuff, right? So I just think about like every single silo, like building this internal software.
yeah, procurement seems really interesting because there are just so many you know mistakes you can make with suppliers. And there's so many different dimensions you can rank them on depending
Mhm.
on sort of where the part fits into your production like process and what's important to you about this. Like, is it important that like you never run out of it? Is it important that it's cheap? Is it important that
Yeah.
it has X characteristic? That's pretty interesting. um One question I have to ask you is that like I not being a machinist myself, I wouldn't have imagined that the typical steel fabrication shop has enough margin to like hire software engineers. So how do you balance like sort of running that business with also building software in house?
I'd actually argue that steel fabrication has like one of the best margins out of like all these industries. So like to give an example, like I was talking to a guy, I like cannot name names unfortunately, but like let's say he does north of 100 million a year, which I know he does. He was telling me he made like 5% margins, and what he's doing is processing metal. So like what processing is like basically taking a coil and turning it into sheet metal. And he was like, "Man, I would love to get into fabrication. Like, there's all the margin in the world there." Um, Now, I was sitting there picking his brain at the times I want to do what he did. That's kind of so part of the reason I got into fabrication. But like, I know what some of our competitors do, and like, um, I guess without sharing too much that I'm not allowed to, like, I feel very confident that like the margins within fabrication are like similar to even some software companies, maybe a little heavier software companies. But again, when you're just welding, and you're doing a lot of value add through like machines that like have like amortized over the years, like there's definitely enough fat. So like I guess I wouldn't be too worried about like that part of it. I think more so like you actually have to get to like the scale. So like we're 20 people, we're probably too small to start doing software yet, but like maybe once we're at 80 or 90 people, then there's probably a bit more margin to work with on that front.
That makes sense. Can you talk a little bit about your customers and like the kinds of companies you sell to, and sort of what like your kind of like go to market is?
Yeah, so it's all OEMs and tier ones, which for people who don't know who that is, that an OEM would be like a Tesla or a Ford, and a tier one would be like an American Axle or a Magna. So like people who sell to OEMs. Um, those are our main customers. Part of the magic of buying a company is that these customers have been coming to us for the past 50 years. So there's a big trust. I don't know what's in their system or who talks to who, but they end up sending us emails and calling. That doesn't mean we don't earn every job. I really think, we've earned it over the years. I think our team is really strong at communicating with them, building a relationship. As for new customers, we've gotten on a few vendor portals. Again, we've been in this for 4 months, so still working on some new customers, but it's honestly just been like cold outreach, LinkedIn, a few hits there. Like I DM some people. And then through Twitter, I've actually, I guess I have a bit of a better following there. So maybe a bigger reach or a bigger net. But some people just DM me. It's like, hey, we need parts. Like I've had a motor company that like for like reactors message me, and like we're doing a quote for them right now. I've had a robotics company reach out to me. So like the diversified the diversified customer list has been through reach, and then we are actively trying to hire a salesperson. So that's that's kind of it.
So when I imagine like steel racks for the automotive industry, and I don't know a ton about the automotive industry, but one of the things I do know is that parts are often shipped to like assembly plants, for example, like in the racks, and like the racks come on the truck and they're offloaded, and like a rack of stuff is like brought to the line, and so they're like in addition to the normal like transportation assets that are going back and forth between the suppliers and the OEMs, like the racks themselves are also like kind of moving back, getting refilled and moving back and forth. Is that right? Am I correct in
Yeah,
that?
you like crushed that. I'm very impressed. Most people think racks, they think like a shelf. So like a steel rack is what you kind of said. It goes in a truck. So it's like this eight 8 foot by 8 foot, 6 foot by 6 foot, whatever you want to say, box that's made out of steel that like custom fits apart. A forklift picks it up, puts it on a truck, and like a vehicle launch will have, that will have all sorts of packaging. They'll have steel racks, which is a package. It might have bins, boxes out of steel. Also, it's going to have a lot of cardboard, a lot of plastic parts. So like this whole packaging world is so weird. But like to answer your question, yes, you crushed it on what.
And those are and you make custom racks. So are they different for like every part then, or for like family types of?
Uh, yes and no. So like a bumper will have its own rack, but like, a little widget that can get thrown in a bin that doesn't
Yeah,
that basically has less of a quality standard will use a bin. So they use both, either custom or a bin. I'm sure it's more bins than custom.
it's interesting. And to serve these like like diversified customers, have you thought about like making things other than racks, or is this like the ocean is so vast of like potential demand for steel racks that there's
Honestly, the ocean is pretty vast. It's definitely over $1 billion spent a year in the US on custom steel racks, which is like
wow,
blows my mind all the time.
that's insane.
Um,
The other $1 billion number that blew my mind the other day, um, JM Smucker's Uncrustables brand. You
what's
know,
that?
it's like it's like you can buy these like pre-made uh, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches
Okay.
with no crust
Okay.
for kids. It's like
Yeah,
It's like $1 billion a year.
that's a banger idea.
Yeah.
um,
Anyway, so steel racks $1 billion a year. But are you thinking about going into
oh
other?
yeah, sorry. So I would think about like other types of fabrication. I don't even know if we need to get into it. Like Look up if people care about care about this racking world. Look up Orbis right now on your phone, or look up Bradford Company, or look up Container. But mainly look up Orbis. It's like started as a packaging company, so like publicly traded. Like the you could do this for the rest of your life if you really wanted to.
Nice. Awesome. Cool. Is there anything else we should know about Delta 70 right now, or sort of, I think like a lot of the guests on this show have been sort of at the intersection of tech and industrials, or tech and manufacturing. So I'm sort of interested in, um, obviously, new generation of business leaders coming to very old school companies, but also like how they plan are transforming them, or sort of how they think about them. So I'm
Yeah,
curious. Yeah.
yeah. I would just say like huge hats off to my team. Like it's really hard to understand unless you've been around a manufacturing plant. But like kind of what I was saying earlier, like every single one is so different. Each machine over 10 years, like say you have two of the same machines and you sell them both, 10 years they're like both different machines. They each have their different nooks and crannies. And like this team that we've had, like shows up to work, works so hard every day, knows how to like solve like little problems on each machine, knows how to set them up. Like I just have like so much respect for these guys. Like I have so much to like learn from them every single day. And like if you're kind of like lost in life, or thinking about manufacturing, just go like work in a shop. There's any type of role out there. If you're an accountant, I think I think eventually becoming a CFO in one of these companies is like really interesting. But like besides the point, get in the shop, like you'll learn so much. I learn so much every day, and like it's also just an incredible lesson in grit. So
That actually reminds me, a lot of the people I talk to about the reindustrialization of America cite like workforce challenges as like a big potential like blocker. It's like, do we have enough like machine operators, or like
mhm.
factory workers, or people who are motivated and fit enough to like do this kind of work for long hours or whatever. Can you talk a little bit about your experience with the workers at Delta 70, just the workforce that you encounter, the kinds of like job candidates you see? Um, what does it take to do these sorts of things? How easy is it to enter the industry? I just want to hear like your perspective on the whole issue.
Yeah, so we get a lot. I think the problem with welding specifically is it's kind of cyclical. Like I was saying this at the beginning of the podcast, like when automotive's doing well, people are happy. When it's not doing well, people are not happy, right? So there's a bit of like this job security problem, and I think like that's like a great case for reindustrialization. Is just like the stabilization of like manufacturing within the West. Additionally, people come in all the time looking for jobs. Like there's some really awesome people we can't hire. We have a really good system where like everything's pretty um how do I say this, like old school at our shop right now. So like someone will come in, leave a resume. Maybe we're not hiring right now, but like we will keep their resume physically in a folder and like keep it there. Write their phone number down if it's not on there. We might call them in 6 months and they might still not have a job, and we'll like hire them. Like we've done that. Or maybe they're whatever they're doing. And in terms of like upskilling, like we'll hire people, be like, hey man, are you willing to learn how to weld? Like I find welding like extremely hard, but like these people are like, yes, like I'm willing to learn how to weld, like I want a job. Like um I think there's value in like making stuff. And like Delta 70 is nice because you make something different every week. So it's kind of fun and you learn a
So
lot.
can people learn how to weld like at your company, or do they have to like go to school first?
No, like 90% of people learn how to weld at our company. We actually prefer when we can teach them how to weld, because when they learn at like a company, they don't like, there's no dust, like you need like a gritty
Yeah,
environment to like
yeah,
actually learn how to weld. So like we teach people all the time. Sometimes it doesn't work out, which is unfortunate, but like, it's like any job, but you find good people like that can like persevere and like adapt. And that's really cool seeing some guys go from like walking in with a door knock, nervously shake your hand, and then a year later they're like almost like running a line. So it's pretty cool.
yeah. That's really interesting, because I think we're constantly told that like, oh, we need to like fund like vocational training for this or that, or like everyone needs to get their like little certificates from
Right.
school before they can like have a a grown up job. But you're kind of saying that like, no, it's really just about like being willing to like, try something new, try something hard, being willing to kind of be the learner on the floor for a while.
100%. Like a good story is, I'll keep it short, but like one of the most successful manufacturers I know, and like one of the guys I learned the most from, is like a mentor to me. Started on the floor as a machinist, worked at the same company for 35 years. Now he runs the place. It's like, it takes a long time, but like you just got to get in the door and learn. And like you basically create this moat for those who don't you know what a moat is, obviously, right? So like,
Yeah, yeah.
you create like this personal moat where like no one can do what you do. And then like you just like compound over time. Like I always tell people, like, don't like, okay, yeah, it's good to go to school, but like if you know you want to do manufacturing, like just get in the shop. Like you can do it at the same time as school if you want, but just get in early.
That's great to hear. That's fascinating, and it just makes me think differently about the workforce issue, which is really helpful. Zane, you've also founded an organization called Industrion. Can you tell us a little bit about what that organization does, what it's for?
Yeah, so Industrion is basically, I don't even know if it's a company yet. I don't know if it's a project. Right now, what an Industrion is how do we get people to the factory floor again? Obviously, there's this huge manufacturing gap, millions of people. It's growing over time. You look at any chart, it's getting bigger. Basically, there's not enough people that will fill the factories that's needed to like reindustrialize. So, what we created, like kind of in simple terms, is like a job board. So like, just ways for, I want to get into manufacturing, here's where I go, because right now there's not really a place for that. What we want it to be long term is like like not like, I don't even want to use the word content, but just like this like place you can go to like dive deep into manufacturing. You want to do like factory tours, you want to like learn stuff, you want to like upskill yourself, you want to connect with people, whatever it might be. Like we're just trying to connect people to the factory floor in the lowest barrier to entry way possible. So hopefully we're launching it in like 2 to 3 weeks. It is June 10th, 2025 right now. So industrion.co is the website. You can actually check it out right now if you want to, but like we're officially launching hopefully soon.
It's awesome. It strikes me as that's something that's like really important. Some guests on this show have talked about, just uh, vast like cultural differences between the U.S. and China in the way that people they think about manufacturing and approach it. Like China, a CNC machine in every garage and that sort of thing. And it seems to me that like it is actually really crucial to introduce people to like the idea of the factory floor, how cool it can be, all of the different things that happen. It's very much something that you don't really see represented on television. I mean, there's like dirty jobs with Mike Rowe or whatever, but like the most kinds of like narrative media that people consume isn't about that world, and it's just this sort of unknown space for people. So I think it's really valuable to like introduce people not only to employment opportunities but just to show them like what's happening and what it's like and what it is.
100%. There's a good article called Good Quest. Forget the guy's name who wrote it, but look up Good Quest article. And essentially, it's this idea of like, you should, if you're really smart and you want to work on hard problems, like you should go do something noble. And like, I can't think of something, I can think of something more noble, but like basically, one of the most noble things you can do is like go work on a factory floor, like support the industrial base. Like when I think about my hometown, like what puts food on the table and like lets people like live. It's like the factory that everyone works at. What's national security? I mean, it's a lot of like Department of Defense, but it's also like factories. Like what won World War II? It's Ford transitioning into like a tank manufacturer. So like I like strongly believe in the mission of manufacturing, and like that's kind of why we created Industrial, because it's like we need people that will work on the factory floor. It's like kind of the girl like we will win kind of whatever that
Yeah, Rosie the Riveter.
yeah, exactly, right. Like that's what they had, the same problem, right? So maybe get ahead of it a bit.
Um, what do you think about? I mean, it's so like gratifying to hear you talk about the importance of manufacturing and just why you think it's important for the West or the North America to rebuild its industrial base. why do you think that reindustrialization is having such a moment now? Like, was it just like completely organic that your colleagues were like, oh, let's buy, you know, a manufacturing business? Was it, is there something in the air? What, I'm just curious about sort of why you decided to make the leap.
For me, I think I got like dumb lucky in a way, just like the way things worked out and timing wise. I had a dad who grew up in manufacturing. He took a huge risk, took a big loan to like buy a machine. Like everything that kind of led up to this moment for me was like kind of lucky. And like I always tell people this, like, people say, why aren't founders and software engineers these days like building and manufacturing? It's like, well, they weren't lucky enough to get around it. Why do college kids build dating apps or like note taking apps? It's because it's what they're around, right? So like for me, I truly am grateful that I got to like be around it, and like I I hope that I can kind of like share that with people like through Twitter has been like the best place to do that for me so far. So um, I don't know if that exactly.
What's your Twitter handle for the guests?
It's just my full name. It's at Zane Hengsperger. Mostly serious, but some unserious stuff. But
Yeah, it's good content. It's good account.
thank you.
Awesome, dude. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate it. It was very cool to hear about, just sort of, you know, hear your perspective, like from the factory floor, like the nitty gritty of, bending, cutting, and welding steel. So really appreciate it, Zane.
Yeah, thanks, man. That was a great combo. Nice to chat.
And if you haven't already, you can visit Bring It Home at bringithome.us. You can follow us on YouTube. Our podcasts are on Apple, Spotify, and all of the major platforms. So until next time,